Hey everyone, Aaron Flink, part of the Pebble Beach team, Chief Strategy Officer. In that capacity, oversee sales, marketing, partnerships, and strategy. And obviously work closely with a lot of golf associations, and excited to be with you all.
I'm Patrick Kelly, VP of Brand and Marketing at Pebble Beach. I don't oversee half of what he does, but also work with a ton of you guys in different capacities, so it's great to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to bring them in today. We have kind of a series of questions. If you do have follow-ups or want to piggyback on anything they're talking about, let me know. We can jump in. But kind of the idea is that a lot of what the content strategy that Pebble's been working on over the last year is a lot of the same themes that we've been talking about here, deeper storytelling and more meaningful stories. So we're kind of going to get into a little bit of that today. So without further ado, we'll jump in. Obviously, Pebble is like one of the top destinations for most golfers, and that's a bit of a balance of how you approach marketing the most recognizable venue in golf. So just talk to me a little bit about that, like how you work with the other golf associations here, being that level of a destination and kind of everything in between.
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot in that. We feel very lucky, right? We have a 105-year-old property. We have some partners, South Beth Major over there with USGA. They're a 95-year partner of ours, dating back to the 29 AM. And so from a marketing standpoint, where I'd start is, we're fortunate that through our USGA championships and our PGA Tour events, Pebble's pretty well known. And so that we don't have a real big brand awareness problem. But what we want to try to make sure is when people come to Pebble, the experience that they expect, which I'm sure all of you can imagine, is exceedingly high. And our bar is how do we still exceed that expectation? And we work with a lot of golf associations, have for many, many years. I was just talking to Joe Houston from the NCGA, who's out in the lobby. They've been a longtime partner of ours, dating back to 1966. We actually donated the land of Poppy to the NCGA back then to help them build that course and set up their headquarters. You all have your fingers on the pulse of golfers, and certainly green grass golfers in the U.S. And so it's imperative for us to work with golf associations to try to bring their members to Pebble. We've done that with USGA, obviously our close partnership with the NCGA. Another example, the SCGA brings a big event up here every July 4th. I see you shaking your head, I'm sure you're part of that. We love giving people a chance to come to Pebble, and if we can create something where it's 1 + 1 = 3 between Pebble, that golf association, and that ultimate member experience, that's what we get excited about. Patrick's integral with his team in terms of really creating that experience and outlining what that should be when people get up. So again, we really value the position that we're in, that people aspire to come to Pebble, but we still need to figure out how do we get people there, and it's through a lot of actually like hand-to-hand work with golf associations and others in the industry to help bring them on board.
Absolutely. So yeah, obviously you kind of mentioned it there. You stage some of the biggest competitions in the game. PGA Tour playing there, Champions Tour, and everything in between. A ton of great history, but then also a ton of daily guest flow and play. Kind of, how do you kind of balance all that both in content, marketing, and storytelling?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll start and then let Patrick jump in. For us, it's like a good news, bad news situation. I think our history is certainly an asset that we have, but we don't want to be rooted too much in the history. And so how do you honor that history? How do you celebrate that history? But how do you always look forward? There's a great, someone's coming and they want to hit the same shot that Gary Woodland hit on the 17th green at Pebble to win on Sunday and actually hit that little nippy chip. I mean, on one way, we're like, we want people to try that. On the green, we actually don't really want them to try it. But it's always a challenge of how do you honor that history, but then invite people to come out and have their own Pebble Beach experience. And that's something that, Patrick, I'll let you kind of go in deep on. We really tried to change the narrative so that we're not just telling people all the history that's happened at Pebble and stating all the obvious around and then letting them make the conclusion, oh, I guess I should come to Pebble. We're trying to change our tone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Aaron hit on it a little bit. We're lucky that we have at least 2 major infomercials every year, right? So come AT&T Pro-Am, you turn on TV, you see Pebble, you start drilling. That makes people want to come. That makes people see how beautiful the place is. What we've been doing over the last year and a half, or a little bit longer, as Aaron said, is sort of change the narrative around telling people how amazing the experience is and trying to put them in the situation of how amazing their experience can be on our property. And that's a slight change in approach, but you start to see it really come to life when the longer stories get told about people coming to Pebble Beach and having their own history. So yeah, you want to hit the shot Gary hit. Yeah, you want to hit the shot that Jack hit, tiger around the tree. You can name all those different things. But ultimately, and you guys probably know this, you go and play golf with somebody, and if you have a Pebble Beach logo on, they're like, oh, I played Pebble. And they're going to tell you about a shot that they hit somewhere at Pebble Beach, and that's part of their narrative and their story. And how do we start telling that bigger for the brand so that people can start to feel like they're part of what we're building? And so instead of saying everything that's happened here, we want to move it to everything that can happen here for every individual that wants to come to Pebble Beach. And as we do that, our tone changes, our approach changes, and ideally it becomes more of a emotional connection, not just a check the box, I played at Pebble. So that's what we're building towards.
That makes a lot of sense. We talked about kind of associations this week of making sure that people can see themselves in the content, right? And kind of being able to like imagine that experience through what you're storytelling around. So it's great to hear you guys are having success with that.
We're having great success with it. What's interesting, Preston, is a lot of people that I talk to tell me, you know, user-generated content, it doesn't matter if it's quality or not. With us, we believe in that, but we also want it to be quality. Right, so it's like that fine line where you don't want it to feel too loose and you want it to feel polished, because when you come play with us, you do want that experience that Aaron's talking about that's elevated, but you also want it to be approachable. And so how do you put the user in that spot in a way that they feel like they should come here and can come here and are welcome here, but it's also something that's like
aspirational.
Exactly
right?
right.
Absolutely.
I think about prior to Patrick coming, if you guys had followed Pebble Beach on Instagram or Facebook, you would see a lot of glamour shots, beauty shots of the 7th hole, of 18, of 6. You would see some, you know, archive footage of shots that others have hit, but a lot of them, they were stills and they were like glorious, of like the 7th hole, sun, wave crashing. I mean, it is like just stunningly beautiful. But to Patrick's point, the person, the golfer, the aspirational golfer wasn't actually in that photo, right? And it was hard for them to put themselves in the photo. It's like, it's one thing to look at the Mona Lisa on the wall, it's another to like actually imagine yourself in that room looking at her. And so a lot of what we've done under Patrick's leadership is try to put more people into that footage, and it helps them connect the dots, not just to them being there, but how they're going to feel when they're there.
And showcasing the wider experience is better, right? Because obviously 7 and 18 and all those iconic shots are, you know, beautiful and attractive, but the property is massive. You guys have multiple courses, multiple experiences. You don't want people to always think like, oh, I just want to go play Pebble. I want to go experience the entire thing.
Yeah, and we're broadening it out. So it isn't even just Pebble and Spy in Spanish and Del Monte, but like, what's it like to sit at the fire pits? What's it like to eat at this restaurant? A lot of people who follow us and want to engage with us are golf nuts. You guys know that. But how do we make sure that there's a whole rounded feeling of, oh wow, there are 2-3 hotels that I can say. There is more going on in Carmel. We're part of that community. Right. So how do we build that into the narrative? And it's been working.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of shifting gears a little bit around partnerships, right? So you guys obviously have some iconic partnerships, and you're trying to balance those across several different industries and integrate that into your content. How are you handling all that from integration into from the business standpoint and the marketing and the content?
Yeah, we've had a great brand partnership program dating back for now 25 years. I think about some of our longest running partners, Lexus, Coca-Cola, Rolex. These organizations have been with us for 25 years. You know, our philosophy around partnerships, and I'm sure all of you have partners in your respective markets, is there needs to be a apparent synergy between that company and your company, your brand. And once you get past that, there needs to be true value for the partner. We need to feel like we at Pebble Beach are going to help that partner achieve whatever sales and marketing objectives they have in that year or for the next 3 to 5 year period. And so are we actually going to be an effective partner in that way? And then the other thing is we need to feel like there's value for our guests. And I'm sure you guys have the same filters. There's value for your members. Financially, if the partnership is great financially and it's helping our partners achieve whatever sales and marketing objectives, and if there's really no value add for the guest, it's probably not going to pass through the filter. And so it really needs to achieve that. I think about, Lexus, again, one of our longest running partners. If you are staying at Pebble and you come in late at night, early in the morning, complimentary transportation from the Monterey Airport in a Lexus. And if you're late for your tea time, one of our valets is going to run you over in a Lexus. All of our transportation vehicles are all Lexus cars. But there's also, if you're staying there with your spouse or friend or whatever, and you want to take a Lexus out and go drive down to Big Sur for 3 hours, that's a complimentary guest amenity that we worked really hard with Lexus. Now Lexus is happy because it's putting, a prospective customer in their car in an iconic setting when they're on vacation, right? Which is what any product marketer would want to do. But then it's also great for the guests because they're getting this premium complimentary experience. And so those are the types of opportunities that we really look to forge with our partners to make sure that, again, there's value on all sides.
I'll add to that too, because take Adidas, same type of thing. It's gear that everyone who works in the pro shop is wearing. We have them in all of our stores, but we're not shoving Adidas down your throat in every touch point, and there's not signs everywhere that says Adidas proud partner, Lexus proud partner. Well, so it has to complement the guest experience and not take away from anything. So from a marketing perspective, it's tough to find that right balance. And when you get it right, you get it real right. And when you get it wrong, you get it real wrong. So you got to be right in that spot. And I think as you guys think about your partners and integration into the experiences that your members have, how does the partner enhance it so it makes you look even better in the eyes of whoever it would be, and what does that partnership look like in terms of the value that you can bring to them that no one else can? That's kind of what we use as that filter.
Absolutely. On the Lexus specifically, I know I've noticed in the content you guys have had on your channels, right, of showcasing what that that first person POV, and if you want to speak to any of the content as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing content with Lexus now, I think it's twice a month. Colin, am I wrong on that?
No, you're right.
Yes. Yeah. Twice a month, and the idea is a POV of what it's like to be in a Lexus around Pebble Beach and 70 Mile Drive. So we get in the car, we take a drone on top of the car, and it feels still like it's Pebble Beach content. It's just brought to you by Lexus. Or Adidas, I'll bring up again. We did a whole content series called Working in Golf, where we showed what it was like to work in the pro shop at Pebble Beach, to be the starter, to be an instructor, to drive the ball picker machine. And it was brought to you by Adidas, but it was all subtle. So it wasn't like, and now go and buy my new shoe. It's got this performance. If we can bring that in a way that it's content I want to watch, the partner's driving it, we're there showing off our property, that's a huge win for us. And we're having all those conversations with our partners now over the last year and a half about taking advantage of the idea of be with us and let's create something together, and people are buying into it.
Absolutely. Do you guys, quick follow-up on the sales perspective, are you kind of renegotiating with those partners to have a less is more approach? Do they get those guaranteed assets like on social as part of their package, or are you doing it as a value add for the larger partnership?
The partnerships that we have are typically 5 to 10 year partnerships. So they're big picture. I would say we generally have a thesis on assets, and kind of we go in with one mode of thinking, but one of the hallmarks for our program is flexibility. And so if the thinking initially, okay, here's how we're going to create value for the partner company, call it Adidas, here's how we're going to create value for our guests, and that's just not landing, the package point, if it doesn't go well and it's not landing, then we don't want to just keep them into a deal that they're not real happy about. We want to make sure that we are constantly, iterating on that, and we've done that with success. And so again, some of them you get right away, and then others you need to change course as you go.
Yeah, so that's one thing I just brought that up because a lot of the associations are starting to dip their toe into revenue generation around partnerships and how to then activate and provide additional value and layer in, how do I take this partner from 10K to 20K next year with additional asset exposure?
Yeah.
So it seems like you guys have a great system of kind of an overarching partnership with with tactical execution in various areas.
Yeah, I mean, look, for us, we want the Rolex, the Lexus. We want 20, 30, 50, 95-year partners like the one with USGA, right? And so for us to benefit financially for a couple year period at the expense of one of our partners and then have them have a bad taste in their mouth, that just for us doesn't make sense. And so, again, if it means us investing more in the partnership to make sure that they see the value, then we're happy to do that. And then we'll talk about at time of renewal, like, okay, and look, their sales and marketing objectives also evolve, not just annually, but certainly over a larger period of time. And so we will then figure out, okay, this is what this partnership term is centered around. But for the next one, it's going to be something different.
It's also a hard question because it's truly a partnership, like a relationship. So we agree on you're going to have X amount of assets, X amount of exposure, and we do this with all of you guys when we go out and do something. We say we want to have this many emails sent, and this and this and this. But as far as if everyone walks away with, that doesn't work, but if you can plus it up, then everybody's really happy, and then you become invaluable into their mix. And that's where we're going.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. Kind of similar question to figure out sponsors. Kind of talk about all the external stakeholders you guys work with. Obviously, you have Monterey Peninsula Foundation for the two tour events. You have the car show that comes into town. You have the USGA. How do you kind of balance all the relationships and create distinctly unique things?
Yeah, again, we're blessed to have really, really long-term relationships, right? The USGA is the longest at 95 years. The AT&T has been a title sponsor for, this will be the 40th anniversary in January, February, the 39th year of the 40th anniversary. So we have, the Concord office, 30 plus year partnership. And so for us, we want to find a really good partner. We want to work collaboratively and openly with great communication. And if you have that foundation, we feel like there's that trust factor. And so we're going to be in it together through good times and challenging times, but be steadfast in our commitment to that partner. So look, we inherited all great partnerships, but now we are stewards of them. And I can tell you that as much fun as we have running our business, there's a certain energy that happens around our marquee events, right? And whether it's an AT&T where 50,000 golf fans are coming for 3 or 4 days to watch the best players in the world, or Concord when you have 25,000 car enthusiasts at the highest level coming and you see 200 collector cars in the 18th hole. It's a pretty wild ride, and then the coup de grace, nothing tops a U.S. Open at Pebble. 250,000 people, the economic impact of the community. But again, great partners, long-term, open communication. We want them to have success, and they want us to have success.
The last thing I'd add to that is, since I've been here at least, the communication channels that we have with those partners, it's definitely not our way or the highway. There's a lot of flexibility in that, and needs have changed even in the year and a half I've been here. How does everybody get what they want without anyone taking advantage of the other person? In events at that scale, it's super challenging because you have other partners who are coming in on top of that, managing all of that process. But it's so cliche, but it truly is about over communicating.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of so we touched on this earlier, like shifting content, but you guys are, from a communications and marketing standpoint, had a noticeable shift in your strategy, kind of especially around advertising. You want to just talk a little bit about that process where you're at now?
Yeah. Trying to think of how to start this. I think historically, as a brand, we have been so lucky that our awareness is so high. It was just, let's just tell people more about us. Let's tell them about the new buildings that we have. Let's tell them about the offer that we have. Let's just inform them logically, and the dots will connect, right? What happens when you do that for a brand is, it's what I call speeds and feeds, right? If we all just chose computers by their horsepower, we'd be working off of a Dell. But a lot of people like to work off a Mac, and they can work off a different machine because there's an emotional tie-in that happens that's beyond just the facts that are surrounding that product. Our product has great facts. We can tell you about innovation. We can tell you about restaurants you should go to. We can tell you about our courses and how they perform. But what we weren't doing, I don't think as well as we could and as well as we will do, is find that way to build that emotional connection that gets people invited in. So it's not just that pretty thing on the hill. It's the pretty thing on the hill, and here's a ferry and a car and a bridge that you can go to get there. And how do we get people there mentally and emotionally? It's it's probably dated now, but I use it all the time. It's a little thirst trapping. You guys know that term? And it's essentially like, how do I dangle something in front of a user or a group of people? How do I make a headline clever enough that it doesn't overstate something, but it puts you in a mindset of, boy, I want to be there. And I don't want to be there because the room is, X amount of square footage. I want to be there because when I open up the door and I look out, I have a feeling that happens to me. The wind hits me in a way, and I smell the cypress trees. How do I get that feeling communicated through the advertising and the marketing? And that's where we're trying to go. And we've done it, I think, pretty well. At least the numbers would tell you that, but we have a long way to go.
Yeah, and we'll get into this a little bit in the next question too, but we'll start talking about you have to hire people to do all that too, right? Your staff makeup, and who's creating all that stuff, and obviously you've invested in the human side of things too. If you can speak to that a little bit as well.
Yeah, they're in the left.
Yeah. They're all in the room.
They're all in the room, and I'm always asking Aaron to hire more people. My background is I used to run an ad agency. So I used to put together content for a number of different brands in a number of different places. When I came here, my goal was to not use an ad agency because I thought we could do it better by ourselves. So we've hired great people, we've built out a great team, and we found resources that are massively affordable, massively excited about the brand, and massively creative. When you work with really creative people, the challenge sometimes is things can go off the rails really quickly and you can get in an argument over a font or a certain color or whatever. But if you get collaboration on that side, which is the marquee, people want to feed you ideas. So our culture right now, I hope, is that any idea is a good idea until I tell you it's shitty. But the idea is like, let's get more going. And I don't think culturally before that was the way we were looking at things. And now that we're being more aggressive in the market, it's about the iterations on everything that we can do. And so that's been the main driver of what we're trying to build.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to add anything there?
No, I guess the only thing I'd add, I think because Patrick's already covered it, we are lucky that we are on TV at least twice a year with the AT&T and the Pure, and then obviously every 8 to 10 years, soon to be every 5 years for our USGA championships. We didn't feel like there was a real need to market. And so one of the other shifts that's happened under Patrick's leadership is, we would only market or advertise when we had something to sell you, right? There was no general brand marketing. It was, we have an offer. And so just, I'll give you guys just a couple of stats. So, if you want to come to Pebble between April and call it Thanksgiving, it's going to be really challenging. You're going to need to plan ahead, and again, you all know this. I mean, that calendar gets pretty booked out, and we'll run 85% hotel occupancy during that period. The golf course, Pebble Beach, runs 100% year-round. But in the winter, it's a little bit cooler here, days are a little bit shorter. That's what we would call our valley season. That's more of a needs period. And so we would be communicating to people through your channels, through our own channels, around the valley season, right? So come September, October, we'd say, hey, come here in the winter, and here's a great offer package that we have. And we still do that. And for the real value-conscious shopper, there's great value to be had in that period. But that was the only time we ever communicated, whether it was over email, through you all. I think under Patrick's leadership, we've tried to be more communicative to our guests, broadly speaking. And it hasn't been a massive investment, but we're just telling people about Pebble in the ways that Patrick's covered more frequently. And we've seen a huge lift as a result from that. More engagement with the brand. We're not necessarily advertising or selling them anything. It's just general brand marketing, but it still makes the phones ring. And so it all goes back to that communication that we were chatting about through other questions. I mean, if we're just communicating and constantly keeping Pebble, and for you guys, the work that you do top of mind for your constituents, for us as our guests, for you, your members, there's value to be had. And sometimes not asking them to do anything with no call to action still results in a really positive benefit.
Absolutely. Much less transactional is kind of how I look at it, right? Like, it's more of a brand storytelling, and that way you have a pipeline of people that are friction at getting out here, and so that you have to do less of the right hook call to action side.
Yeah, it's interesting because what Aaron's talking about, we don't do any price-driven communication at all. We talk to you about offers, we talk to you about what we're doing, but we never throw a number at you. There is a way though, Preston, I think that this is it's a misnomer that it has to be either brand or retail. You can do brand retail work together. You just have to make sure that the brand is there, that it's not just throw a big number with a starburst next to it. And be like, why aren't they buying it? Right? Well, they're buying into being part of you and what you do. And the more you can communicate that, then when it comes time to make the transaction, it actually starts to make itself. And like Aaron said, make no mistake, it isn't like we're spending money. We are spending money, but we're not spending like real money. What we used to spend when I was running my agency with brands was tons of money. We're spending smart money, and we're doing it in a way that is long tail. And we're lucky because we can do that, but we're setting that hook as far out as possible, and that investment's going to pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great takeaway for a lot of organizations here is you can't wait until someone's been mapped out to renew their gen, right? You want to hit them throughout the year with stories and brands and keep yourself top of mind. So you have a great ask to make, but it's not all of a sudden.
It's already been made.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in an ideal situation, they do it yourself, right?
Yes.
So a little bit more on content. You talked about the last 18 months. A lot more volume of content in general, but lots of different varieties as well. So could you speak just a little bit about that shift and like some of that tactical execution stuff you're doing on your channel?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this credit goes to Colin, who's here, who's kind of the driver behind a lot of content we're creating. But historically, we've just hit you with golf. And it's just been, golf shots of beautiful this, beautiful that, kind of ambient music and thinking like everyone loves to see that. Now we're trying to get into what's it like to be here. We just did a post a couple days ago that was like, how many tees do you carry in your pocket? Right now, that just creates an engagement. It's got a shot of Pebble. We want to have a conversation. We talk about the Lexus stuff. We talk about the restaurants. We talk about what it feels like to come to Pebble. How do you plan that trip in a way that it broadens it out so it's not just a shot of the golf course. We've also started to talk in different mediums. So we launched a platform that we call Pebble Vision, and on Pebble Vision on YouTube, it's about longer form stories that we can put brands into and create longer pieces of content so people can kind of invest themselves into the brand. So you can get the content on Instagram that will be short and sweet. You can get the content on YouTube, which will be longer form and something you can engage with. And last I'll say is, we're trying a bunch of stuff, right? Another bad analogy, but we're throwing 9 lines off the back of the boat and seeing which ones hit instead of just putting one out. And I think taking that risk and exposing yourself in that way, you can then sort of start to see where the action is, and then you can chase after that action. It's been something that has not been done here historically that we're taking pretty seriously.
Yeah, you started talking about YouTube too, and that was kind of my next question. You guys have definitely gone a lot more into longer form content on YouTube, and obviously YouTube Golf has had a big year just as a niche on the platform with the tour, doing the PGA Tour and the Creator Classic, and Bryson's channel and all of that. So how do you guys kind of see yourselves both fitting into this growing YouTube landscape and your own strategy as well?
It's a massive growth area for us, probably the biggest. All the action right now for diehard golfers is happening on YouTube, and the media wants to tell you all that. They want to just now, if you're good, or you're running a podcast, or you're Bryson, or you're a player, you want to watch golf players play. We don't have that luxury, so we don't want to just have it be about agronomy or be about coastal stuff. So we have to come up with content that feeds into that machine in a way that it's a different way to exercise your hollow leg for golf. And so that's what we're trying to do with the content we're building, and we're trying to bring our partners along with us. So how do you show, for example, I was talking to Aaron about this today. How do you show what it's like to plan a golf trip, right? How do you kind of talk about the 3 stages that happen when you book to go to a certain resort somewhere? How do you go from the before, the anticipation, the conversations? You guys know this with all of your members. hey, I got a tea time, I got room in my foursome on Saturday, and you get a text message on Tuesday. And they're like, oh, where are we playing? And then there's back and forth, and what time are we going? Who's going with us? And all of this. And then they go out and they play their round, and they capture their round, and then after that, they talk about the round that they played and the shots that they hit. That's storytelling that any golf course can do, and that's a human truth as to what it's like to engage with the game of golf. So we're trying to get to that level on YouTube as much as we can.
Absolutely. Do you see yourself potentially partnering with influencers, or have you started talking about that side of things as well?
We are.
Yeah.
We have, not to great success, but we are in the process of talking to a bunch of influencers right now. We're in an interesting situation because our core audience is probably not watching good, right? So when you come to Pebble, you've got to have a certain level of means, is the horrible way to say it, but you look at the good crowd or the YouTube crowd, that's a younger crowd, and we want to be a part of that conversation, but we also need to drive business. So how do you strike that balance where it's a piece of content that I'm an older man, that I want to watch, and it's the same one that my nephew wants to watch. So it's like, so we're trying to balance that with our influence.
And making sure, because like the good audience will age into your core audience.
Completely.
Making sure that you have that touch point, and it's not, so you're kind of along that journey as well.
And that's the long play,
Right.
And so you have the long play, and you've got the medium play, and you've got the short play. And so leveraging YouTube for the long play is easy. Medium is somewhat, and then the short play, what do we do to make sure that we're still really relevant? We still want to, it's that, if you really want to get there.
And y'all imagine, okay, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I mean, and agree with everything Patrick said. I mean, for us, we also need to just be mindful of our brand, right? We're a 105-year-old brand, and we have this, this legacy that we need to be mindful of. We need to innovate, and we need to reach out to the next generation that might come to Pebble in 5 years or 15 years. And so the art is just which ones to engage and in what way. So I think you'll see us being really thoughtful, experimenting with new channels and influencers, but it's not like we're going to jump, fully in. Just to give you an analogy, right? Waste management, incredible event, huge economic opportunity for Phoenix. And the 16th hole, if you look at, I always love every time we get in February, you see what the 16th holes look like over like a 25-year progression from like no grandstands to now the entire thing is it's like you're going into a stadium, right? And people are running out at 5 a.m. and they're having a good time all day, and that's great. And that is, I think it's good for the game of golf. However, we can get more people into the game of golf in whatever way they want to engage with the game is a good thing. You'll never see us doing that or chasing something like that. And I think that's probably fairly self-evident, but I just share that analogy as it relates to what we're going to do through advertising and marketing. How can we be thoughtful, innovative, reaching out to the next generation, but in a really thoughtful, responsible way?
I think it's super relevant. So many of the associations, at least 100 years old, if not more,
Right.
having to strike that same tone of, honoring the past and being reverent to the traditions, but also making sure that we're reaching the next generation that's very soon going to have all the buying power as well.
Yeah.
So, kind of wrapping up here towards the end of our questions, definitely been a conscious effort of highlighting people around your content as well, so employees, volunteers, things of that nature. So we'd love to hear kind of some insight into how that came about and what you guys are doing on that front as well.
I think one of the things that people don't know about Pebble Beach that makes it such an amazing brand and company are the people, right? You can go and have an experience at Four Seasons or a different hotel property, and you'll kind of get the hands behind the back, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. The people that we have, it's about a little bit looser, it's a feeling. So we want to highlight that as part of our brand. So bringing those people forward and showing a little bit of personality that, we are our brand. And if you come to Pebble Beach, you're going to not only get great golf, you're going to get good food, you're going to get a nice place to stay, but you're going to have an interaction with our people that is almost second to none. That's a huge pillar for us that is as important as the golf when it really kind of comes down to it. So we just have to highlight that because it's a huge strength of ours. As far as putting people in the content itself, it isn't even that, Preston, as much as it needs to feel accessible, right? And it can't be, like, one of the lines that we were playing around with, and we'll never really use this in an outward-facing moment, but it gives you a sentiment of it. At Pebble Beach, it's a place where you can actually touch the art, right? And if you think about a museum you go to and you can't really do anything, but here you can play with it, right? It should feel like it's this place of imagination. And to get that feeling out to everybody, you need to put them in that seat and in that spot so that they can see themselves there as much as they want to, and as much as it's just a place that's like, again, on the hill. Absolutely.
Yeah, the only, just to piggyback on that, we have almost 2,000 people. 10% of our people have been with us for more than 25 years. Our attrition rate, our turnover rate is 11 or 12%, which in the world of hospitality is, second to almost none. And part of that just comes down to, I feel like we do right by our employees, we care deeply for them, but they also really attach themselves to our brand and to facilitating the guest experience. I can tell you that, again, to piggyback on Patrick's analogy, you go to Four Seasons, you're going to get perfect Forbes 5-star service. Everything's going to be by the books. Our employees are going to show a little bit more of their personalities when they engage with our guests. And for 98-99% of our guests, they really appreciate that. And I think the people are one of our strengths, as Patrick said. I get the lucky vantage point of I read every guest survey that anyone fills out. And we get a little over 3,000 guest surveys a year. One of the most common refrains is, I've always wanted to come to Pebble. I came. I wanted to come because of Pebble Beach, because of Spyglass, because of the golf, because of the natural beauty. What I didn't expect was how I was going to feel while I was on property, and what really facilitated that were the people. And I'm going to come back because of how I felt. Yes, Pebble was beyond my wildest imaginations, but I'm going to come back. It's worth it for the dollars that I invested in that experience because of how I felt when I was on property. And I think that's just a quick personal aside. I remember when I was interviewing for my role 7 years ago, after a full day of interviews, I sat out and had a glass of wine at the Spanish Bay fire pits. And one of my reflections was this time of year was you look around and everyone is having the time of their lives. It didn't matter if, who they were, what their financial situation was, whether they broke a car or shot 125. Everyone was on cloud nine. And I think a lot of that is driven by just our people and the way that people feel when they are on our property. And I think that is transferable to any organization, right? It's the passion that they have for Pebble. And I think, obviously in all of your cases, the passion that your team has for what you're doing and the member experience that you're creating, it all starts with people.
So the overarching thing that I keep hearing is you guys have such a good understanding of what you want people to feel when they're here on property, and that translates into all of your marketing because it kind of comes back to that one.
Yeah, I would say I'd say we've always nailed it on the on-property experience.
Correct.
It has not translated to our marketing historically, and that's under Patrick's leadership. That's changed over the last couple of years, and as he said, I think it'll continue to change more over the next several years.
Absolutely. Those are all the questions we have. Do you have anything from the audience that you guys would like to ask? Yeah,
Just kind of following up on that, and you somewhat answered it at the end. When it comes to the people side of thing, you have indicated that it's been that way forever. How has it been that way forever, where the people in that experience on site has been the driver of success?
I think so.
Okay.
For us in the interviewing process, we screen for all the common competencies and experiences, but my biggest filter is a culture fit. And I think that's true of a lot of hiring managers. I know Patrick's done that with his team. Do they have the passion for Pebble Beach? And not to say they need to be an avid golfer and have known Pebble Beach forever and ever, but once they learn about who we are and the experience we try to create for our guests, is that something that they buy into? I can tell you that the accountant who literally never interacts with a guest, they still feel that passion and the importance of working for Pebble. We try to do a good job of letting them know how critical their role is in the overall company success, but that's where I think it starts, is the hiring process. And then the place that it continues is because we have so many long tenured employees, there's a whittling out process that happens. Almost like if they come in, yes, the manager is going to coach them if they don't appear to be the culture fit that we thought they were going to be, but their fellow employees will help either upskill them and get them to embrace our culture, or it's going to be pretty clear pretty quickly that it just wasn't the right fit.
And following up on that, in my mind, I've been trying to figure out how I can apply this to our, our state golf association world. It's very unique, but one of the your own perceptions built up in your head, like we get this code of you need this to present this at the gate, and you're driving up to a gate, you're get up early and go down to see it, and you're like walking on eggshells to go up to the gate, and they're like, hey, how are you? You're great, come on in. And that feeling that you have, and then you pull up and you realize, oh, there's parking here where I can just go walk down there, and there's signs that, yeah, come out here if there's no golfers, please be respectful. Those are things that we don't often see certainly in the private side of the golf world, and I'm just trying to figure out a way how we can translate that to what we do and what we see every day, because the feeling, as you described, the feeling that I had at Pebble experience, even though I didn't play, is one that I'll certainly never forget. So it's Preston, if you can help us figure out how to flip that to our side of things. I think you'll have a great job.
One of the things that I would think, back to relationships, the more relationships you can have with the courses in your area, that you're a valuable resource, like you make them feel like they're part of your organization, your association, that is invaluable, right? And it's like, you know the pro, you know the super, you know the assistant pro, like by name, they know you, you've taken the time, a couple days a week, you go out to 2 or 3 courses and just are present, right? And then that becomes an instant referral with somebody asking a question of like, oh, where else can I play around here? Or do you know any other good resources? And they're going to be like, oh, the golf association, right? I mean, it's like, that becomes its own self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's something that we try to do with a lot of our guests. When we talk to our starter for the Pebble Vision content series, this guy named Rich, and we were asking him, like, well, what's the magic? And you just watch him and the way he interacts with people, and he's cracking jokes, and he's like, it makes it cuts the tension down so heavily. Because you're on the first tee at Pebble Beach a lot of times, and you're kind of, like, oh, this is good, I'm having fun. And you will literally interview people after their round, and you'll say, how did the first and second and third hole go? And I don't know. I don't even remember. Because they're just so wound up, right? But my point is that you can be that wound up, but you can also kind of have that relationship, and that people will tell you that they had an incredible experience with the starter or the guy who picked up their bag, and like they felt welcome. So if I was in your guys' shoes, that like make all those courses know that you're that person, that would probably help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, curious, more of like a logistical question, but you talk about like capturing like the player experience and not just the course itself. How do you go about actually like executing that content? Like in terms of finding a foursome, finding a player caddy combo, like you can't shut the course down, I assume. So like how do you get that content while also being respectful of like guests, and like how do you pick who you're using for that content?
I'll give you a couple examples. The low-hanging fruit one is something we did. We gave a family a set of disposable cameras. And they came out and they played Pebble, and then they turned their cameras in, and we took all the photos that they took, and we turned that into content, right? Stuff like that where you're just getting clever, and you're just trying to figure out how do you make, and that family was over the moon to be able to do it, and you didn't interrupt the round, you didn't slow down play at all. They felt great about it, they talked about it, we got to talk about it, there's that. The second thing that's a little more complicated, but if you found the right partner, it's not impossible to pull off, is camera angles. So the way that we shoot the content isn't just, up on a tripod or just a 180-degree view. We'll get in tight so it'll feel like you're there, right? It's through your eyes, and it's things that you'd see when you're at Pebble Beach, but you wouldn't normally see someone brag about. It's signposts, it's different parts of the topography, it's putting it low when you roll it out. So you get that feeling like, oh, this isn't normal golf content. This is a point of view. So that would be the second thing. And then the third thing, if you can pull it off, and we're not great at it yet, but if you can get real user-generated content where people are like proud of it, right, and there's some way that they want to engage, that just shows everybody else that this person enjoyed it, so I probably will too. And there's a lot of that. Somebody had to like it first before I could like it, which is a weird thing, but you see it in all the communication that happens. 9 out of 10 dentists said that this gum's great, right? That's been an old trick forever, but if you can get people to really share that experience with them, then you kind of have that first person.
Yeah, like how often are you, I mean, I'm sure you're tagged in a million things every day. Like, how often are you sifting through that to like, because I think I saw one of your recent posts was like user generated. Like you took, I think, photos that golfers took on their round and you used them. Like, how active are you in like checking your mentions and your tags to like be like, oh, that's a pretty cool photo that someone just took?
Pretty active.
Yeah.
We also have like a hashtag program. So we use a third-party data source that if you tag us with this certain hashtag, that all filters into one place. But I think from your situation, it's probably a lot harder because you might not have the resources, right? But if you had something that you could grow a hashtag community, or you could grow something that would allow it to pop up for you without you searching it, it's worked well for us. And like you said, we're tagged in a million things with users. We don't use that stuff all that often. We use a lot of media as kind of reposts, and we lean into the My Pebble Beach tag.
20 years ago, it was basically 2 spots that were looked for on top. You come here, or you go behind this. Now we have all kinds of properties. You have cabin properties, you have street sun, you have, there's 20 different spots that we go on over there, right? A, do you think that maybe the brand got complacent? And I guess, do you feel like if you're on the top and you have all these other properties coming at you, feel like it's going to be better? But you have to in terms of marketing and possible.
Yeah, so I'll start and then Patrick should jump in. Did we get complacent? I don't know if we got complacent, but we certainly were very comfortable with the media exposure that we had through the events that we hosted. I would tell you that I think all those additional golf destinations is a good thing for us. It means that more people are taking golf trips. And as great as Bandon or Sand Valley or Cabot or Pinehurst or Whistling Straits is, at some point, that golf trip, that set of couples or guys or gals that goes there is going to want to come to Pebble. And for us, I mean, there's 27 million green grass golfers last year. We need 50,000 of them to come to Pebble. And so I think anything that helps grow the game, that keeps the game more fun, is a good thing for us. Has it changed the way that we think about marketing and speaking to our guests? I think it probably has. And Patrick should jump in there.
Yeah, I 2 different answers. One, definitely they're competitive because they're golf resorts. But they're not really that competitive because they're not the same experience that you have. And I don't just mean the ocean. I mean, like Pebble Beach is different. You're not jumping on a shuttle and playing 36 holes and eating chili and a hot dog and like rowing out for a full. And that's my version. I would love to do that all the time. So we have a different experience, and we compete as much with them as we do with resorts in Hawaii, right? So it's a little bit broader. As far as complacency goes, I think it sharpens us, right? And you look at how they position their brands and how they talk about their brands, and it shows us really what truly is differentiating for us. And by highlighting those differences, we can continue to elevate in a white space where they kind of have to all fight over that 8 some of the guys who want to go play golf for until their hands bleed. We can service that group too, but we also can go into different places. So like the growth of golf, women's golf for different communities, we have the opportunity to take a real leadership position in all of that because we can be that destination. Where I think those other places are just going to have to service the growing hardcore golfer, the golf sicko, right? And so we'll get the golf sicko because you got to come to Pebble, but we can also get different versions of golfers, which is a big challenge for my department.
Anyone else?
question about the connection that the employees have to the brand of the company is fantastic. I've seen it myself. It's really impressive. I'm curious if you could speak more to that. How do you not just hire for it, but are there benefits you do to strengthen that, or incentives, or rewards, or training? But what helps once you get them in? How do you make it stronger?
Yeah, it's a great question, Joe. I think it starts with hiring and onboarding. Those are the two most important elements. I think our training program has continually gotten better. A lot of it is then self-managed by the department that they go within, right? So if I'm a Pebble Beach front of house member, then my best trainers, yes, the manager and the leader of that pro shop, but it's going to be also my peers and colleagues. Same thing if you go to the bench or if you go to Spanish Bay housekeeping. So I think the people that they work with, their colleagues, are a huge part of it. I think we have great benefits. If you're a Pebble Beach Company employee, you can play Pebble 2 to 4 times a year. But of our 2,000 employees, only 500 are what we call an avid golfer. So while that's a incredibly special benefit for a quarter of our employee population, 3/4 really don't play golf. And so we need to be thoughtful about the entire benefit program. Compensation is a part of it. It's a competitive community here on the Monterey Peninsula. We try to pay in the top 25%. There's going to be people who are willing to pay more, but we really try to look at it holistically. And I'll just go back to the most important thing in my mind is their attachment to the brand and their passion for what we do. Their attachment to our mission. And if that's there, and you have good leadership kind of at all levels, I think a lot of good things happen.
I'll add to that one other thing. I'm relatively new. I've been amazed by how much and how well we communicate to employees. It's a thing that comes out every week. It's a thing that shows up in your inbox. People who aren't on the email machines. The managers are required to disseminate that information. People like Aaron go in and host, what do you guys call them? Chats, where everyone can come in and ask the questions, and we take the time at that level, which shows a ton. So it's a commitment to it, and communication is probably the key.
Cool. Well, definitely appreciate you guys coming over and spending some time with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you everyone for